whichever part of the world you are joining us from. The Global Council for the Promotion of International Trade is proud to host this global celebration of World MSME Day 2021. We have more than 35 speakers joining us today from more than 25 countries. We are really honored and grateful to all of you for accepting our invitation and joining us today. On behalf of GCPIT, I welcome you all to this wonderful evening. I'm Aparna G. Kumar, the Global Co-Chairperson of GCPIT and your host for this evening. To quote Henry Ford, coming together is a beginning, staying together is progress, and working together is success. And we believe this is just a beginning, and this will be a beautiful lifelong relationship between all of us, and we will be working together for supporting SMEs across the globe and thereby creating a sustainable change in the society. As we all know, the United Nations General Assembly designated 27th June as Micro, Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises Day in order to recognize the contribution that MSMEs have made to the implementation of Agenda 2030 and the Sustainable Development Goals. Micro, small and medium-sized enterprises or MSMEs account for 90% of businesses, 60 to 70% of employment and 50% of GDP worldwide. Today, on MSME Day 2021, almost 18 months after the onset of COVID-19 crisis, most countries are still grappling with the pandemic and its severe health and socio-economic impacts, including lockdowns and the need to support those who have lost their jobs and livelihoods. Though at first it was a health crisis, it had unprecedented and serious impacts on all of the aspects of how people communicate, work, produce, trade, consume, and live. The economic ramifications of the pandemic quickly became apparent, and SMEs have been on the front lines. With workers and customers staying indoors and supply chains tested by shutdowns, the small companies that provide 70% of the jobs in countries around the world and about half of economic activity have been put under stress. A COVID-19 business impact survey done by ITC clearly tells us how the pandemic has affected the small and medium enterprises. Analysis of this data shows that the pandemic has strongly affected 55% of their respondents. Nearly 2/3 of micro and small firms reported that the crisis strongly affected their business operations compared with about 40% of large companies. 1/5 of SMEs said that they risked shutting down permanently within 3 months. Service companies have been the hardest hit around the world. In accommodation and food services, for instance, 76% of the surveyed firms said that partial and full lockdown strongly affected their business operations. 64 of women-led firms declared that the business operations were strongly affected, and youth-led enterprises reported a high risk of closing. About 26% of youth-led firms said they risked shutting down permanently within 3 months, compared to 18% for non-youth-led businesses. Many companies that are not registered with national authorities are small and have little cash on hand to finance themselves whenever operations are shut down. The survey also found that informal enterprises are 25% more likely to say that the pandemic is pushing them towards bankruptcy. All these data shows that as business support organizations, we have a key role to play. The reason for all of us coming together is to cooperate to create growth opportunities for companies, competitive advantage for a country, and help deliver economic, social, and environmental objectives. Businesses working together can reduce costs through shared procurement, create economies of scale, and access new opportunities by sharing knowledge and resources. As business support organizations, we all can benefit from each other's knowledge, convening power, and our credibility to represent micro and small businesses and make their needs known to policymakers and funders. In the last 18 months, the whole world shifted into digital platforms, and teleworking, remote learning, teleconferencing, online health services, e-commerce, and digital payments, all these taught us that digital facilities will no longer be optional. As we are opening to the new world that has been reshaped by the pandemic, we all have to adapt to the new normal, a new normal of building and fostering resilience, digital transformation, inclusiveness, and sustainability. On the 75th anniversary of the United Nations and 5th anniversary of the adoption of the SDGs or the 2030 Agenda, which includes 17 global goals and features 169 related targets that aim to end poverty, protect the planet, and ensure prosperity for all, let us make a promise to ourselves. We all have come together today. Let us all work towards creating possibilities, a world where no one is left behind. As Nelson Mandela said, it always seems impossible until it is done. Let's together create the change we wish to see in this world. Thank you so much for joining us today. So on this auspicious day, we are proud to have India's #1 business news channel owned and operated by the Times Network, ETNow, as our media partner. As they salute India's SMEs and MSMEs and startups who showed resilience during the crisis, we are proud to join hands with them. Let us watch a short video.
Leaders of Tomorrow, India's longest and most definitive television platform for SMEs and startups. Pioneering and nurturing their dreams into reality and recognizing true leaders who fuel momentum. The Leaders of Tomorrow Awards and Conclave is back to salute India's SMEs, MSMEs and startups across industries and sectors who not only survived but saw revival and thrived during the pandemic. Have you shown resilience during this crisis? Have you innovated against all odds? Nominate yourself and win the chance to be felicitated at Leaders of Tomorrow's illustrious awards. Register yourself now. Entries open. Presented by IDFC First Bank.
That is amazing work. Thank you so much for joining us and supporting us in this mission.
Aparna?
Yes,
I know
Sabir, thank you so much.
I think it was a great session. Thank you all of you. Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you, Abir. Thank you so much. It was well moderated. Thank you so much. I'm delighted to go directly to the US session. We are extremely sorry for the time delay. Sorry for keeping you waiting. So let's know what is the future of SMEs and trade in USA. So start the session and to share her views. We have a very special person with us today, Ms. Melissa Pierre. She is a senior trade and policy specialist officer at the American Chamber of Commerce of Trinidad and Tobago. She brings 14 years of strong leadership and corporate experience in marketing, trade facilitation, export promotion, and event management. She has a strong passion for youth advocacy and empowerment, having championed several youth-led initiatives at AmCham TNT, most notably the organization's flagship youth event. Thank you so much, Melissa, for joining us today. Sorry for keeping you waiting. Over to you.
No problem. Thank you very much for having invited me. And I'm really honored to be participating on this platform with one of my Caribbean colleagues, as well as somebody from the US. So I really want to say thank you for the opportunity to share some thoughts on this day that we celebrate for micro, small, and medium enterprises. I want to say a special thank you to Santosh and Aparna for the Global Council for the Promotion of International Trade. You are doing great work building a worldwide network. Through collaboration, SMEs can not only survive, but they can thrive. SMEs are the backbone of Caribbean economies and a notable source of employment. Small businesses and entrepreneurs have demonstrated extraordinary adaptability during the COVID-19 pandemic, and they will be critical as we forge our path to recovery. SMEs account for just about 60% of our employment, and they do add a lot in terms of national value. They are the engines of innovation, productivity, growth, as well as job creation. The SME sector is becoming more important in terms of tax generation and its significant contribution to creating employment. The challenge remains that the SME sector in the Caribbean, as well as specifically Trinidad and Tobago, has a high level of informality. While SMEs do contribute to workforce skills and upgrading in terms of innovation and technology, it is very difficult when we try to measure the contribution of a lot of the SMEs as they operate within the informal community. The impact of COVID-19 has been significant on SMEs. It has placed some unprecedented strains. The stay-at-home orders, the curtailment of restaurants and retail shops have significantly impacted revenues and employment. Currently, we have curfews each day with only 5 non-curfew hours on holidays. COVID-19 has dealt businesses a bitter pill, but businesses like Caribbean people are resilient. SMEs have been able to pivot and they have embraced digital transformation, and that really is the only way that they can survive in the future. All companies must embrace it. We have also seen companies start to produce sanitization products, which they weren't doing before. Some of the micro companies have risen up and they now provide transport services We have mobile car care services. I mean, I can purchase my groceries using an app or via WhatsApp. That was not possible pre-COVID. You know, there's some reasons why SMEs they tend to not grow, and they tend to sometimes fail in small open economies like Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad and Tobago is just about 1.4 million people. And to a large extent, our SMEs struggle to obtain financing. Reasons because, you know, they include a greater risk profile combined with SMEs' lack of additional collateral. We still very much follow our banking system, very much follows the traditional banking. So they do require SMEs to have a high level of collateral, and they do not look at other components when evaluating any initiative. What we've seen as SMEs have recognized since COVID-19 is that having these long supply chains was disadvantageous. And I've seen a lot of SMEs now looking towards different suppliers and looking towards suppliers that are closer. Trinidad and Tobago, we do belong to a trading bloc called CARICOM. So what we've seen is that whilst persons were trying to source products from much further, they are now looking within CARICOM or looking at the US as places that they can in fact source some supplies. As a country, our SME sector, while we definitely see some opportunities for the SME sector, they are faced with some significant challenges. We have a challenge right now we have a lack of US currency. We're not able to obtain US currency because we are an oil-based economy, and the price of oil have not been very high. So we as a country have not been able to earn a lot of US currency. We definitely need to have some venture capital funding. It is important that we have funding that looks beyond the traditional banking system, as well as we are trying to encourage as a chamber our members and the private sector to look beyond the shores of CARICOM. It's comfortable to trade within CARICOM because we share the same type of country, same sort of culture, but we also need to go beyond CARICOM. And for us, the future of SMEs is really going beyond those shores where everything is safe, is really going beyond that. And, you know, unfortunately, one of the challenges we're faced with right now really is vaccination. We just do not have enough vaccines, and we have an initiative, Vaccinate to Operate. But I guess without enough vaccines, the operations or when our economy and SMEs can really return to business is still a question. And with these words, I just want to thank once again the organizers, thank my colleagues, Mazen and Philomena as well for their unwavering support on these initiatives. So handing back over to you, Aparna.
Thank you so much, Melisha. It was awesome. You have been always supporting us. And next, I think, let me invite Brian because it is already very late. So next we have with us, just a moment. Mr. Brian Lucy, who is the Executive Director of the St. Lucia Chamber of Commerce, Industry and Agriculture in St. Lucia, a position he has held for the last 20 years. Brian has over 30 years experience in development work in both the public and the private sector. A trained economist in the area of development economics and project planning, he has been active in the fields of private sector development, business advocacy, business support services, trade negotiations, export development, sustainable development, development planning, and competitiveness throughout his professional career. So let me invite Brian Lucy. Over to you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Thank you very much for.
Good morning. Sorry for keeping you waiting.
Not a problem. It is a pleasure and a real honor to be part of this very healthy discussion and dialogue. You've had some excellent presenters, so let me say congratulations and thank you for the wonderful job.
Thank you so much.
So far. I continue to learn so much. Just to provide a little bit of context, we are really pleased to be part of this. St. Lucia is one of the British West Indies islands located 12 degrees north, 16 degrees west. We are 27 miles long at the longest points and 14 miles wide at the widest point. We are part of the archipelago of volcanic islands, forming part of the subgroup within the CARICOM called the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, OECS. We boast a population of approximately 180,000 people. We are a former British colony. Our island, like most of the world, was severely ravaged by the global COVID-19 pandemic. Preliminary data indicate that the economy of St. Lucia contracted by 23.8% in 2020, in contrast to growth of 1.7% in the previous year. Projections for 2021 point to a modest recovery, although uncertainties persist with respect to the evolution of the COVID-19 pandemic and the distribution and uptakes of vaccines, both locally and internationally. Our primary sector, which is tourism, we saw that value added, which accounts for 10.5% of our GDP, was estimated to have contracted by 67% in 2020, in contrast to a 3.9% expansion in the previous year. Central to this development was a 64.6% contraction in total visitor arrivals. So we went down to a total of 455,151 visitors compared with 1.3 million in 2019. The contraction of this major sector, tourism, has had a significant spillover effect on a number of related sectors. Significant declines were recorded in transportation and storage, 57.2% decline, wholesale and retail, 10.5%, communication and information services, 8.6% decline, and value added in the construction sector, which accounts for 5.3% of GDP, contracted by 5.2%. The increase in public sector investment was not enough to offset the reduction in private sector construction. This is a picture from which I examine the future of MSMEs in St. Lucia. By any definition, the vast majority of firms in St. Lucia can be categorized as MSMEs. In fact, among our 150 members, 67% of them only employ between 1 and 20 staff. Moreover, an enumeration exercise of the business community about 4 years ago revealed that only 30% of businesses in St. Lucia could be categorized as being in the formal sector. Therefore, I argue our nation is one of MSMEs, and as such, this event, World MSME Day, is significant for our business community. I wish to identify with the comments made by Melissa and a lot of the other speakers about the issue of the impact and the importance of MSMEs to our economy. We are dependent on having a vibrant MSME sector. But some of the issues that confront our MSMEs and really impact on what kind of future they have, and some of the issues that we need to address include issues of vulnerability. Vulnerability to economic shocks, to climate change, financial and economic crises, not just in our country, but in our trading partners, leads to problems with our supply chain buyers and sellers, of which they have limited control. Thus, building resilience among MSMEs has assumed increasing significance at this time. Notwithstanding the fact that we admit MSMEs have shown that they, because of their small size, can be very flexible and adapt quickly to increase productivity and production and help and even lead diversification of our economies. Yet, this issue of vulnerability is real for them. Therefore, we are putting forward that there is need for us to unthink the traditional models and paradigms as we set out a future for MSMEs. MSMEs need support to teach them how to build financial resilience, how to build resilience in their supply chain, their market channels and distribution channels, to name a few. How to manage and unthink their business model to take advantage and exploit the digital space that is open to all. In that unthinking, we point out and we argue that skills and knowledge building for MSMEs is paramount. So I therefore agree with the comments made by our speakers from the continent of Africa. Your realities and your challenges ring similar to us. We argue that we cannot allow the fourth industrial revolution to bypass St. Lucia and the Caribbean islands. Support is therefore needed to find ways to help MSMEs in digitization and the use of numerous digital platforms and technologies that will help them better manage and operate, and more importantly, help them innovate. Unlike the continent, Africa, the Caribbean is facing a reality of decades of slow growth rates, mounting debt, and declines in competitiveness, and also declines in birth rates. The task is to grow our economies and businesses in this part of the world that is more vulnerable, and is probably the most vulnerable to natural disasters that disproportionately affect MSMEs. Our Caribbean countries have seen on an annual basis, almost on an annual basis, destruction by hurricanes that have devastated their GDP, their infrastructure, thus leading to even more pressures. The most recent COVID-19 impact surveys conducted by our chamber shows that smaller businesses were twice as likely to report declines in revenues and sales, twice the level of declines of their larger counterparts. Interestingly, they were less likely to have reduced staff. MSMEs experience higher levels of increased cost operations than the larger firms as a percentage of their total cost as they sought to implement health and safety measures to limit the spread of the COVID virus. In our country, due to the very high debt levels and limited fiscal space of government, real financial support to MSEs has been limited. Worse yet, the financial support that is available to employees who were let go and put on layoffs were not available to employees in unregistered informal sector. Therefore, government had to put a paltry program together to help these people. MSMEs have therefore had to rely on their own capacities, resources, and networks to help them navigate through the difficult time they face in the next normal. BSOs like Chambers of Commerce have had to therefore play a significant and positive assertive role in that regard. Our chamber has opted to seek to help our members by adopting the theme, adapt, operate, and thrive in the next normal. We see the future of MSMEs tied strongly to our ability to improve the ecosystem that can support them, and we have a fundamental and primary role in that regard. By way of example, we have developed a smaller member support program that seeks to provide specific support to our members who employ less than 20 persons. This program provides access to specific skills, knowledge, and training programs. This program has been sponsored significantly by 5 of our larger members, including banks. The program further offers discounts of up to 40% on our regular training programs. Members who sign up to the Smaller Member Support Program, which we refer to as our SMSP, are also entitled to free advertising and promotion of their goods and services on all our chamber platforms. We have developed and are about to launch a big business hookup where our larger members gift free consulting hours of their professionals from legal, accounting, engineering, branding, marketing, finance to the participants. This, we think, will add real value to our smaller members and encourage members in the smaller smaller businesses who are not members of the chamber to join the chamber to participate and benefit. We see this as very important because a more vibrant SME sector stimulates and helps the economy and help larger businesses because of the symbiotic relationship between the two. Yet I wish to propose that there are other areas where MSME support is needed. In building resilience, developing the skills and knowledge, in becoming more innovative, accessing networks which can help them collaborate, where they can partner with other smaller businesses and recognize that to collaborate is better than to compete. I will give you a small example of a real collaboration that has taken place in our banking sector. Our indigenous banks are much smaller than our larger international banks, yet they were able to collaborate across the OECS to buy the Royal Bank of Canada's assets in their country. This could have never been done by any of our indigenous banks, but coming together, they were able to raise the revenue needed, raise the financing, and purchase the assets of our international bank, the Royal Bank of Canada. I agree also that we need access to finance, and we must pay attention to financial inclusion. We've spoken about the need to help businesses transform and participate in the digital economy. We agree they need to find the networks to have enhanced access to markets, regional and international. Finally, we need to strengthen the BSOs that support MSMEs. We have developed a program that looks to help in change management, entrepreneurial skills development, skills and tools for lean management, enhancing output and productivity, increased use of technology, adapting to climate change, financial management, and talent management. If we can do these things, and if we can build the ecosystem to do that and support MSMEs, they have a brighter future. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, thank you so much, Brian and Melissa, that these sessions are just going awesome. We are getting a lot of good feedback from our audience from across the globe. It's really great to learn about the statuses of MSMEs from across the globe. Now we understand that the situation is same, right? And that's why it becomes important that we come together to find solutions. And when you said good morning, I'm in the Middle East and it's getting dark here and time to say good night. But it's so exciting. Now I feel we are indeed becoming a global family. And next we have with us Dr. Pawan Kumar. Sorry, sir, for keeping you waiting again. And he is a partner of F50 Elevate and co-founder 3PM Ventures. He is an ex-founder, author, speaker, and investor. He has 20 plus years of experience in startups and enterprise across India, Middle East, and USA. Funded multiple companies across USA, UK, and India, specialized in business strategy, partnerships, innovation, and driving change. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us, and over to you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I mean, it's a pleasure to be in the company of so many people from different geographies and different perspectives, different economies. It has been pretty enlightening listening to all the speakers from different parts of the world. I think they covered most of the things which otherwise I could have spoken. But anyhow, just to utilize my time and share my thoughts on this. First of all, let me compliment every MSME across the world for this special day when we are celebrating the World MSME Day. I just would like to compliment the SME segment across the world, especially during pandemic time. I think when all the supply chains and the logistics of the world have broken down, MSMEs are the ones which supported the local communities and they went out of the way, though many of them got impacted. Hopefully we will see most of them coming back and surviving because they are led by people who have very strong entrepreneurial skills as well as roots. And hopefully we will see a lot of those small companies and small businesses coming back and doing business again. Just to give a perspective, I'm based out of Rochester, New York. I'll talk a bit about SMA status in USA. We have close to 32 million SMEs in USA, which contribute 50% of the GDP. which is close to $11 trillion every year. And they generate 2/3 of the employment in the private sector, and they add 1.5 million jobs every year. So it is one of the major vibrant sector here. And also SMEs tend to be far more successful and sustain on longer terms when they focus on global markets and export beyond the shores of USA. And that's where you see a lot of SMEs exporting out of the country. And as usual, like in any other geography, most of the SMEs are first generation entrepreneurs, and some of the SMEs survived. And you see second generation, third generation entrepreneurship continuing in the family, and this SMEs continues to thrive and are liked and loved by the local communities. I mean, like any other industry segment, like any other business in this globalization wave, the SMEs are also being challenged, especially because they are very slow to adapt technologies, and they have limited financial access. And most of the time, we see that SMEs are limited by their vision as well as their ambition. They just want to stay relevant and profitable and continue to serve the local communities without going beyond a certain geography or a limited geography. And obviously, they tend to have higher little talent other than operational talent. They just try to contain and limit to operational talent just to support the businesses. These are some of the challenges that are faced by SMEs. On the flip side, we kept hearing a lot about startups. We see that the line between the startups and SMEs is pretty thin. And, it's very interesting because I'm associated with startups for a long time. It is very interesting to see how this line becomes very, very gray, when it comes to individual's approach and perception. It could be an SME or a startup based on the entrepreneur's ambition and goals. So what are some of the opportunities for SMEs? Because SMEs are best placed in terms of growth because the decision making is very thin. It is just the entrepreneur himself or the family which makes all the decisions. So that's where you see huge opportunity to scale the business, and it boils down to individual's decision making, how he really wants to do it, he or she wants to do it. And also there's a huge cultural alignment. We kept listening to stories from Africa and other different parts, where it is all about culture, community, values, and supporting the local systems. That's where SMEs really thrive. And there's a huge opportunity as long as you're able to play out that cultural angle. And it is quite relevant and easy to scale as well. And also there's nowadays, because of growth of education all around, and it's quite evident that there's a huge opportunity to hire the local talent. And again, as long as you want to adapt some of the scientific methods and do some of the modern approaches to grow the business, there's a huge talent pools available locally, which you could hire to use for the growth of your business. Again, one of the key skills most of the SMEs bring when you compare to the giants who operate in the market, with whom the SMEs tend to compete, is SMEs are pretty unique. I think the basic fundamental value that comes from SMEs is the empathy and customer experience. There is a human touch there. People personally, you're connected with them, and you tend to attract them to come back, and which is very much lacking. And this is a great skill as well as asset with the SMEs should continuously exploit and keep growing it, because no other large entities can give that human touch. And obviously the lean organization, low cost of operation, these are all the advantages. I mean, just to give you an example, if you ever watch Shark Tank, which is one of the most popular shows in US, you see an SME coming in, an individual or a group of individuals bring an idea or a product which is very early. They get backed by one of the sharks in the Shark Tank, either through funding or also their managerial or even their entrepreneurial support, and they become multi-million dollar companies within a very, very short time. So this clearly shows, there is a huge opportunity for every SME to grow large and beyond the limited geographies and beyond the limited markets, and also to enter into new areas and new opportunities. So what can the SMEs do, because we just talked about how SMEs and startups are pretty close, and what can SMEs do really to survive, thrive, and also grow? Survival though is part of the game, but I think what is most important is how do you grow and become big and continue to grow, serve the community. Also, there are certain studies which clearly show consumers and customers are willing to pay extra when the product or the service is coming from the local community or from the local culture. So this is one thing which SMEs should attempt to leverage, because the local communities really want to support them and help them in terms of survival as well as growth. I think every entrepreneur who is in the SME space should have very ambitious goals and a vision to not just survive, but to scale and become big uh, beyond the geographies where they operate. And also they should start looking at technologies, how they can absorb the technologies and hire talent which is locally available, so that they also become smarter. Some of the things like digital marketing, becoming visible and open on digital media and encouraging customers to talk about you. These are some of the ways where you can grow your business at a very, very minimum expense. Also, there are a lot of organizations which are helping, especially in US. There's an organization called SCORE, which has huge talent pool, be it legal, marketing, sales, management. In every area, they have volunteers who are willing to help the local SME segments to grow their businesses. I think what is really needed uh, when compared to startups is to approach the business in an unconventional way. You will remain an SME and limit yourself when you try to build the business or grow the business in a conventional way. But if you are able to cross that thin line and look at the whole market opportunity and environment in a very unconventional way, like a startup, then there is no limit or bounds to your growth and your ambition. I think that is where SMEs should really try to position themselves both for survival and for the future and for the growth, and to explore every opportunity that is available. I just want to end this with a story. This is a very compelling story which I came across last year during pandemic time in Rochester. Uh, this is Dr. David Paul. He's a neurosurgeon. He's a very young neurosurgeon. He's still going through his education, and he'll be finishing soon. And his wife, Lauren, they built a coffee brand called Bold and Gritty. This was launched during pandemic time, and their main intention was to connect through the coffee the story of a generation and culture. Because they come with a black background, they started this company, and they wanted to connect through the coffee, the culture and the community and the generation of black. And they have put in phenomenal efforts to grow the company while they continue to do their professions, working part-time on this. They have been successful, and they are really growing pretty well. So this is a story of every SME, how it begins, how it thrives, and how it grows, and 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 also gets passed on to the future generations. It is all built around emotion, purpose, uh, and the idea of doing something unique, and also contributing to the community. So I hope and I wish this culture of SMEs, the culture of entrepreneurship, the culture of risk taking, and the culture of not just earning or making big, but also contributing to the community continues to thrive and grows big and big globally. Thank you, and I really thank the organizers for this opportunity to speak here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pawan. I think that was an awesome session from USA. So, yes, thank you so much, Melissa, Brian, and Dr. Pawan for your excellent sessions. I'm sure the audience would have got a lot of takeaways like how I have got. Thank you so much for joining us today. And as Dr. Pawan rightly ended with a human touch, and that is what CCPIT always focuses on. Let us all work together for creating a better world. So I think we have reached the last session of today, but a very much awaited one. We have our founder himself going to address us in this closing session.